This immigration drama that we have right now is only possible because we don't understand our own history. As a country, and particularly those of us of European descent, we have lied to ourselves about how we got here and for what reason. See, black folks know why they're here. Native peoples know why they're here and how they got here. A lot of Asian folk know, particularly if they're Chinese American, they know they got here because their ancestors were brought over to work on the railroads by the railroad barons who didn't care if thousands of them died laying track 19, 20 hours a day. But for those of us who are from Europe, we have this fiction that we've told, and we believe it, even though there's no truth to it. You know what the fiction is? It's two parts. Number one, we say things like, with regard to Mexicans coming over the border, with regard to immigrants coming over, but only that border. That's the only one we care about, right? The southern border. I find that interesting. We're not flipping out about Canada, right? We only care about that one border, forgetting for a minute that that border was created at the end of a war that was started on false pretense by this country, after which we jacked half of their country. And you weren't taught that in school either, because our history books aren't interested in telling the truth. They tell this very patriotic history that has no relationship to the fact. So that border is artificial. Mexican folk who are coming here, documented or not, let's be clear, are coming home. Their families were here before our families were here in almost every instance. But we forget that, and then we say things like, well, I don't mind them coming. I just want them to come legally like my people did. The hell does that even mean? Come legally? There was no law to break when our people came. The fact that we didn't break a law that didn't even exist, you don't get cookies for that. You don't get like a pat on the back and a gold star because your great, great, great whatever was law-abiding when there was no law that he could have violated, even if he wanted to. But we've told this lie that we came for these upstanding principles. So we'll say things like, well, you know, our people came for liberty and freedom. These people are just coming for stuff. They're just coming for jobs. They're just coming for health care. They're just coming for stuff. We came for high-minded principle, right? Because we believe that. What kind of third-grade version of American history is that, right? Like when Donald Trump says, well, Mexico's not sending their best. What the hell, you think Europe sent their best? Our people were the losers of Europe. The winners didn't get on the boat. You understand what I'm saying? The winners didn't leave. Why the hell would you leave if you were winning? Only the losers left because they had no choice. They were dying. They were starving. They couldn't support their families.
America is not a Christian country. America is not a white country. It's a country that was built on stolen land using the exploited labor of people of color. And the only people who have the right to claim this land as theirs are indigenous people.
If you've been on TikTok for a while, you must have heard about a ton of Africans telling you that Europeans stole Africa's resources. Now, there's a lot to say about that. First and foremost, most of these resources are still in Africa, and they're not being stolen by Europeans. They're actually being sold to Europeans by the African state leadership. Your own elites are robbing you. It's not us doing it. Not anymore. The real issue, of course, is why aren't Africans using their own resources to do things? Why does Mr. Beast have to go to Kenya to build water wells? Why didn't the Kenyan government do it themselves? I suppose the Kenyan government could have done it themselves. They just chose not to do it. Nigeria is now a country of almost 220 million people, the largest country in Africa. But they only produce about 10% of the electricity that a small country like Hungary. Hungary only has 10 million people, but they produce 10 times as much electricity as Nigeria does. I mean, I know you want to have your Wakanda, right? But do you expect white people to give it to you? No, you're supposed to build it yourself. Having said all this, it is, of course, obvious that we Europeans in the North need to prepare for a possible, potential African rise in terms of technology and therefore also in terms of military capacity. And that means we in Europe need to already start looking ahead and thinking ahead about how we are going to win the war against Africa, because there will be a future war between Europe and Africa.
And some of you will tell me that what we are saying on this app is not going anywhere. You can see that they are hearing everything we are saying. Everything the youths are saying, we are hearing. If I show you the kind of DMs that I have, the kind of things people send in my DM, you'll be shocked that I'm still on this app talking. Let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, our leaders are the ones killing us. You have heard from him. He said, our resources are being sold to the West by our African leaders. which is true. The West is not entirely gone. The West are the ones manipulating our leaders because they are still here. Some of our leaders are like puppets, controlled by the West. Someone like Gaddafi, they saw the kind of development he was doing to his people, and they manipulated his people against him. If you see any African leader that the West doesn't like, that the West is kicking against, know that that African leader is doing something good in the life of his people. Look at the young man in Guinea. How many coups have been plotted against him since he overthrew the president? He has chased France out of his country. Now, people are even mobilizing against him, including the Nigeria's president. So guys, let me tell you all, African youths, this is the time. This is the only tool we have to stop this. This is the time for us to let them know that we know what they are up to. These our leaders are up to. For how long are we continue to fold? We are going to continue to fold our arms and watch our brothers drown in the Mediterranean Sea in search of greener pastures with our colonizers. For how long are we going to watch our sisters being brutalized in Saudi Arabia by the people they are working with them as mates? For how long are our graduates in Africa going to continue sleeping under the bridges with certificates in their hands with no jobs? For how long are the African youths ready to die because they don't have good healthcare system? African youths, you might have 100 followers, you might have 200. Speak life into this nation. It's time for you to stand up. We cannot continue to suffer like this. We deserve better. Our motherland has blessed us. Our nation has blessed us with everything. Without Africa, the West is nothing. Everything about the West comes from Africa. They cannot even talk about history. They cannot even talk about their own history without mentioning Africa. It's impossible. So guys, this is the time. I won't overemphasize. I won't over-labor this point, but this is the time. I will continue talking. For those of you who always come for me and say, oh, leave our president. I will not leave any president. If you are doing anyhow, or you collect anyhow. If you lie, you come to my DM or you send your people to my DM to threaten me. That is the least they can do. They will not shut this mouth up. The hunger for change in Africa is in me, and you cannot even kill it. If you are an African youth and you are not tired of this suffering, then something is wrong with you. Something is really wrong with you. Listen to how this man is saying it. Was it difficult for the Kenyan government to provide its people with borehole waters? Why does it have to be Mr. Beast coming all the way to come and do it? Is it difficult for the Kenyan government to do it? No. But why do they choose to treat their own people like this? I'm sorry that Kenya collected a stray bullet here. Even Nigeria is used as an example. Nigeria cannot boast of electricity. A giant of Africa cannot boast of electricity. The person that did us this in Africa needs to pay so that we should be free. I've said my own. If you like, you sit quiet.
I am literally shaking. I have followed this couple and loved them for so long. They have inspired me, and now they're from Germany and Australia, and now after building villas and buying up land in Bali, they're doing it in Cape Town. I'm like literally shaking, because South Africa is a country that has just fought against colonization, and now we have Europeans coming into our country and buying up land, pushing out indigenous people even further. They are doing this in Indonesia, a country that has already, the same thing that I've just said. Why are we allowing companies to operate in South Africa when the poverty line is so low and these people are not going to uplift our economy? They are there to exploit. They are there to not just exploit the land, but to exploit the people. Let me tell you, these are multi-millionaires. multi-millionaire influencers coming to do this to our country after they've done it to Indonesia. But you know why they're not in Europe? Because there is no future in Europe. The future is in Africa and Asia. As a white South African, I can say I have benefited from that system, okay? But we are trying to make amends for the past, and we are trying to make things equal. But when these Europeans come and they basically just undo everything that black, white, Indian, mixed race South Africans have tried to do for the last 30 years. The problem is that the money that they invest into the land doesn't stay in South Africa. It goes back to Europe. The same with Bali, the same with Indonesia. It doesn't stay in the country. It goes back to Europe. This is another form of colonization, and they exploit the people because for one night they're charging $1,000, $2,000, but they pay the staff $300 a month. If this is exploitation.
Europeans have always defamed heroes, because colonialism wasn't just about stealing land. It was about stealing memory. It was about rewriting who deserved to be remembered and who deserved to be erased. And when they couldn't erase, when the drumbeat of revolution was too loud, when the people refused to die quietly, they did what cowards do. They lied. They slandered. They distorted. They named every act of resistance a crime, called every rebellion disorder, every revolutionary a tyrant, every freedom fighter a warlord, because they knew something that most history books still won't admit. The heroes of the colonized were the executioners of empire. Let's be precise. Haiti, Toussaint Louverture, organized the only successful slave revolution in history. He defeated France, Spain, and Britain in battle. Yet French textbooks called him a loyal servant who turned into a dangerous extremist. American ones barely mention him. And Napoleon? They still teach his military genius. Not the fact that he re-legalized slavery and starved Haiti for embargoes for daring to be free. Burkina Faso, Thomas Sankara, renamed the country from Upper Volta, a name the French gave it based on a river, to Burkina Faso, land of upright people. He banned female genital mutilation, ended government corruption, and made the country food self-sufficient in 4 years. But go read Western media from the time. They called him anti-West, too idealistic, a dictator in disguise. Why? Because he told the IMF, World Bank, and France to go to hell. And that's the one thing Europe can't forgive. Sovereignty. The Congo. Patrice Lumumba's only crime was wanting an Africa that didn't bow. He warned that colonialism never left, just changed its clothing. Belgium tortured and assassinated him with CIA help. Then they kept his tooth. Yes, Europe literally extracted and hoarded his remains like relics. And for 60 years, European journalists called his death necessary. Only in 2022 did they reluctantly give the tooth back. A single tooth. No apology. No indictment. Kenya, Dedan Kimathi, led the Mau Mau rebellion against British rule. He was executed by the British in 1957. For decades, Britain called him a terrorist. They buried him in an unmarked grave. Meanwhile, they ran concentration camps. Yes, literal ones. For Kikuyu civilians, tortured children, and castrated prisoners. But somehow Kimathi was the savage? India, Bhagat Singh, was 23 when the British hanged him. The Empire called him a dangerous anarchist. Today they say he was too radical, because he didn't ask for freedom. He demanded it. The Philippines, Andres Bonifacio, founder of the Katipunan revolutionary movement, was branded by Spanish friars as a bandit. His crime? Declaring independence from Spanish rule and trying to redistribute land. Europeans always found brown revolutionaries more dangerous than brown kings. Because a revolutionary doesn't just want a crown, he wants justice. The Americas, every indigenous leader who resisted genocide was labeled a criminal. Crazy Horse, Hostile, Sitting Bull, Threat to Order. Tupac Amaru II, Traitor to Spain. Tecumseh, Enemy of Civilization. And civilization? The ones that used smallpox blankets and massacred entire cities? That civilization? Even their own exiles weren't safe from slander. Simón Bolívar, who liberated half of South America from Spanish rule, was called ungrateful by Spanish historians. Che Guevara, who challenged American imperialism in Latin America and Africa, was smeared for decades as a murderer by the same CIA that funded fascist dictatorships across the globe. Nanny of the Maroons in Jamaica, leader of guerrilla resistance against the British, was described as a dangerous influence on the slaves. Notice the pattern? If you kill for empire, they call you a hero. If you fight back, they call you a threat. They gave medals to the monsters who ran the Belgian Congo, but jail time to the men who fought to liberate it. They put Winston Churchill, who starved millions in Bengal, on the 5-pound note, and put revolutionaries in unmarked graves. Even their silence is violence. Europe has thousands of statues of mass murderers. Columbus, Leopold, Rhodes. But where are the monuments to Louverture, Sankara, Lumumba, Ya Asantewa, Queen Nzinga, Boudica, Nani, Kimathi, Bhagat Singh, Tupac Katari, Malcolm X? They don't just omit, they erase. They don't just slander, they sanctify their villains and bury our saints. And let's not forget, they even slandered the colonized version of Christ, Jesus, a dark-skinned, anti-empire, anti-moneylender, table-flipping revolutionary, was turned into a blonde-haired, blue-eyed empire mascot. The same Rome that crucified him built cathedrals in his name. The same Europe that enslaved millions spread Christianity with whips and guns. They turned liberation theology into imperial doctrine, because even their religion is a rebrand. So when they call your heroes violent, when they call your resistance chaos, when they tell you you're rewriting history, remember, Europeans have always defamed heroes. Because if they ever told the truth, their whole house of cards would collapse. Cope.
White conservatives right now believing that you can be illegal on a land that was stolen is the ultimate cultural appropriation, because what do you mean you came here, you stole land, and you pillaged for land? Only for hundreds of years later, you try to kick out the people who were more native to this land and closer to being native to this land than you ever were. Well, let's remember that European settlers came here on a land that was inhabited by natives and that was neighboring Mexico. You guys came to this land and you did all of that, right? You did all of that. You took all that you could, only now to say, okay, everybody out. Okay, round them up. What? You're crazy. That's cultural appropriation, babe. That's cultural appropriation at its finest.
Hi, my name's Katana Mansell and I'm a colour woman down here from Tasmania, and I'm just wondering how you're going to support Aboriginal people.
Treat everyone on an equal needs basis, based not on race but on needs basis, and that's been my policy from day one.
So you're going to give Aboriginal land back to Aboriginal people?
I think Aboriginal land back has been given back. Over 54% of the land is under native title, with another 10% under determination.
In Tasmania?
I don't know what's happening in Tasmania, but across Australia.
Well, we're talking about Tasmania because we're from Tasmania.
Well, I don't think it should be given back.
Why?
People have to work for their land, like every other Australian have to work, and like every Australian. Why shouldn't it?
Well, we actually had to work for thousands of years to maintain
But
this land.
you never did. You
Yes,
weren't
we
there.
did. Were you?
That's the past.
It's not in the past, we're still dealing with it today. 1% of our land has been returned.
Stop playing the victim.
I'm not playing the victim.
You are playing the victim. That's got nothing to do with you, what happened in the past.
Yes, it's my family that has dealt with that, and we're still living with it today. If you come to Tasmania, you need to be...
It's equality for all Australians. Stop playing the victim because you're Aboriginal, the land is taken from you. The same as a lot of things have happened over the centuries. You understand what's happened in the past and you don't repeat it. So all of this division that's happening, and I'm not for division.
The division has already been put in place already.
You cannot deny what's happened in the past by all means. But this land has been settled, it's been worked by people from all different cultural backgrounds. We are what we are today because of all, what Australians put into it.
Exactly. So Aboriginal land needs to be returned back to Aboriginal people. It's as simple as that.
You've got 54% of the land has been returned.
No, not in Tasmania. I'm talking about my land, this land.
Native title. So you don't
Native title. Treaty. That's what we're talking about.
Where's? Okay, thank you. I've answered your question.
Okay, well, you shouldn't be coming onto a country that you're not welcome to. Trust me.
Our junior review.
Yeah, I'm a racist. Say I'm a racist.
Marlene Hanson, go back to where you came from. You racist.
You know, a lot of white people ask me why am I always bringing up race? And I'm going to tell you why. Every time you try to let it go, and keep in mind, I got business partners that are white men, but every time you try to let something go, you hear these horrific stories. Horrific stories that show you that we're in 2025 and you have a young man, Mr. Lacey, R.I.P., rest his soul, who had a great future. And simply because white men, not all, white women, not all, hate us. And, you know, a lot of white people be like, man, stop making it about race. It's always been about race, and it always will be about race. The stories that you hear, it's always some type of white man, which is the cop. They wanted to crucify this young man. I don't know, maybe because he was successful, black. Shit, their wife might knew who he was. But it's always some hate that's coming from that breed. But then when I get on here and make comments and I make videos like this, it's like white people get the first people to get on here and be like, oh, y'all always make it about race. No. Y'all made it about race. And I have many, many, many more stories. But that's just a recent one of the young LSU king that they killed. Because even though he committed suicide, they helped him commit suicide by ruining his image and ruining his reputation. So when these little injustices that happen to white people and they want us to feel bad, like Charlie Kirk or whatever his name is, again, I don't got nothing negative to say, but I ain't got nothing positive to say either. White people will always be racist because they feel entitled to a land that was never theirs. With our mind, you could do anything.
White people stole millions of acres from black families using a legal loophole called heir property, and they're still doing it. Follow to expose how they legally steal black generational wealth. When black landowners died, many didn't have wills. The land became heir property, owned collectively by all descendants. White developers would find one distant heir, buy their tiny share for cheap, then force a partition sale. The entire family loses the land. Courts almost always favored the outside buyer, even when dozens of family members objected. Speculators targeted black-owned land because they knew these loopholes offered almost no protection. Families who tried to fight the system were drowned in legal fees they could never match. Since 1910, black families lost over 12 million acres of land, worth over $300 billion today. Land our ancestors bought with freed labor. They use the legal system to steal our land, then act like the wealth gap is our fault.
I don't know how many times I have to remind people that white people are not the morality standard, socioculturally, sociopolitically, geopolitically, historically, on the basis of humanity, because white history, imperialism, colonialism, and the delusion of white supremacy are the most violent, unethical, and illegitimate systems of oppression that have never been reprimanded, and white people have never paid reparations for the harm that they have done to black and brown people across the globe. Mind you, they could never pass the purity test that they are obsessively trying to give black women on a daily basis, because that would require being honest about history, about their place in it, their role in it, past and present, about the fact that chattel slavery still exists. It never went away, here on U.S. soil and beyond. Genocide never ended here on U.S. soil and beyond, and the cognitive dissonance is coming from the fact that white people do not register that they are still a part of the oppressor class. As long as they have not been reprimanded, as long as reparations have not been paid, they are the oppressors. They are not the puritanical morality standard. And because they have evolved epigenetically with unreprimanded colonialism, imperialism, and the delusion of white supremacy, they automatically see themselves as authoritarian figures, which is why they're constantly trying to establish themselves as cops and police everything black and brown people are doing. The police state was designed to be a continuation of genocide and a vehicle for chattel slavery that specifically targets black people. White people could use their privilege to solve these problems, but they choose not to. They are not targets of the police state. They have the privilege, they have the resources, they have the systemic power, and they choose not to. White leftists specifically, who are constantly spouting 200-year-old theory by European white men that was not designed to solve the systemic issues of racialized oppression in the West, could apply that theory that they are demanding everyone operate on, but they don't, because they don't want to. The only functional example that they have of Marxism, communism, socialism, etc. working is the Black Panther Party. They are not up to date in their theory. They have no history of that being a practice here in the West. We are not living in the East. This is the West, where racialized chattel slavery and genocide are the pervasive, continuous systems. Black and brown victimhood was designed to exist in perpetuity because the systemic oppression of white supremacy was never intended to not exist. If white people genuinely wanted liberation, they could, but they are oppressors. Oppressors are not liberators, which is why they are constantly trying to derail black and brown effort. Always. And they have this internalized white supremacy, this internalized white cis heteropatriarchy, this internalized colonialism and imperialism that, again, they have epigenetically evolved with. Which is why they are not working to uninternalize it. And unfortunately, when it comes to politics, when it comes to intersectional leadership, like black women, for example, these are the same people who don't recognize that they are already operating within a base level of misogynoir and subconscious and conscious bias. And they are trying to push purity tests on black women to affirm that bias, that confirmation bias, that black people can't be trusted. If you are white, why do you think you should be trusted? What have you done for black people? What have you done for brown people? What land have you given back? What reparations have you paid? That European theory, again, that's 200 years old, you haven't applied it. You're trying to scapegoat black labor because y'all don't actually want to do it. Because you can look at things theoretically when you're a part of the oppressor class and when you're not actually experiencing the subjugation that you are perpetuating. But also, black people, let's not pretend like our community does not have a real history of attempting to bypass and avoid and deny black victimhood. And that is internalized white supremacy. When you are black and your critique of black women is only garnering celebration from white people, there is a blind spot in your liberation. There's a blind spot in your politic. And I'm not saying that black people are above criticism, that black politicians are above reproach, but there is something very odd about being black and being a soft landing space for other people's misogynoir, for their white supremacy. And that is what is happening. And there are these fake white leftists who are claiming, I'm critical of everybody, da 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 da. But then if I go to your reply on Threads, why is there 100 critiques of black women and no critiques of white people? There's receipts. You can see people's replies on Threads. Why are you constantly in black people's comments arguing, trying to dissuade black leadership? Because that is what white leftist politic is. White leftists do not understand that they are the modern day white liberals that black leaders warned us about, because the white liberals evolved, or devolved, as I should say, into moderate conservatives. And white leftists have now become the white liberals. The reason why you think that nothing you're saying is misogynoir is because you're still an oppressor. In a world where racism still exists and the delusion of white supremacy is the pervasive and dominating societal system, you will never run out of white people to correct. You will never run out of white people to convert from racist to non-racist. But unfortunately, black people, brilliant black people who do have valid criticisms, there are so many white people looking at your dissent of black people, of black women in leadership, as a way to scapegoat their white supremacy. They are looking to hide behind you. I'm not saying this is true of every single black person who's critical of black women in leadership, but what I'm saying is that there are more racists than not. And there are very few white people who really completed that uninternalizing of white supremacy, that decolonizing, that deconstructing. Very, very few. Very few. And everybody white thinks they're the exception, and they're not. Which is why most people's politics continues to fall apart on misogynoir and anti-blackness. White people, does not matter your political affiliation, your demographic, white people overwhelmingly put a fascist in office. That was your community. Doesn't matter if you're a communist, a Marxist, a Democrat, a socialist, you're whatever. It doesn't even matter how you voted. What matters is the overwhelming majority of your community voted for this. So you're not in a position to puritanical politic with anybody. You should be puritanical testing your own community. Puritanical morality police white people. Because y'all have done nothing for black people. Y'all have done nothing for black improvement. Y'all have done nothing for indigenous improvement, for brown people. Y'all have done nothing but continue to be the bully victims in every situation. Your critique needs to be primarily targeted at white people. You think that you have intellectually bypassed white supremacy through leftism, and you're still behaving as white supremacists, regurgitating white supremacy. And unfortunately, black people, we are guilty of intellectualizing our way through internalized white supremacy to avoid victimhood, to avoid the label of victimhood. We're already surpassing the oppressor. As long as chattel slavery still exists and has not been reprimanded, as long as reparations have not been paid, we're still operating in a system of white supremacy. And white people's opinion about politics, we've been subject to white people's opinions about politics, and look at where this country's at.